5 writing mistakes ruined House of Dragon in Season 2, and in this video, I'm going to unpack why it was as satisfying as a concrete ice cream, and how those fails stacked to betray your time, because events don't equal a story. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how its critical failures connect to a central flaw that damned this season from its start, and we're going to map this minefield in steps you can learn from so you can write better scripts and stories than HBO's hit show. Hey, it's Billy from Scriptmaster, and on this channel, we help storytellers level up with pro insights to cut through the overwhelm and become world class. So if you're a story fanatic with ideas and ambitions, then like and subscribe, and let's get stuck in. So in this season, Rhaenyra was as compelling as a crusty sweatcloth, and we just had to make peace with that. But before we get to her and why she was the source of most problems, I want to talk numbers and arcs, because this series was always going to struggle. 6 of the 9 characters we'd invested in were on one team. So, characters killed and remaining. First, they killed the Twin Knights for impact, which landed because we at least knew them a little, but it was episode 5 that things really started to go wrong. So let's lift the hood on an early decision that I think seemed like a good dramatic idea, but which was a massively missed opportunity, and I think it shot the writers in the foot. Let's talk about the death of Rhaenys and the role of a mentor. In season 1, they flirted with Rhaenys being an enemy before she became an uneasy ally of Rhaenyra and ultimately Rhaenyra's mentor. A mentor character is a vehicle for the story's theme. It puts it into action through their own example in life and the core beliefs and values that they promote. Think of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda for Luke Skywalker, Mufasa for Simba, Gandalf for Frodo, Dumbledore for Harry Potter, Morpheus for Neo. The point is that the reason 90% of mentors die is that their death removes the safety net they provided for the protagonist, forcing the protagonist to decide whether to accept or reject their mentor's beliefs and values and put the lessons learned and observed so far into action themselves. Rhaenys' death really should have been a catalyst for clear internal development in Rhaenyra. It should have triggered internal transformation of some kind, but did we see any recognition of what Rhaenys represented? Killing off Rhaenys created another problem for the writers this season, and maybe one more problematic than episode 4's shock was worth. It left Rhaenyra with only her husband Daemon and her Admiral Corlys as characters from series 1 who had arcs, personalities and personal stakes that we were actually invested in. Because with Rhaenys gone, there were double the number of characters in the opposite faction, the Hightowers, with rich, active, tortured and compelling arcs. And a useful thing to understand here is that the degree to which we're typically interested in characters on screen directly relates to how clearly we understand how what we're seeing and learning about them informs the story we've signed up to see. And I'll unpack that fully in another point shortly, but it was a major problem on the Targaryen side throughout season 2. Every time Rhaenyra's team was on screen, it was immediately more boring than the Hightowers because we just didn't care about anyone with her. Her courtiers were minor parts with forgettable lines, moaning about her in action 90% of the time. The golden rule is show, don't tell. But in almost every scene with Rhaenyra, we were told instead of shown. We got reports and not action. And attention follows energy. So this takes us to Daemon and the death of dynamism and danger in that man. You see, Rhaenyra's husband, Daemon, was a badass in series 1. He was a ruthless man, and their relationship was rich with personal conflict because they were bound by duty and love but had rival ambitions. When they were together, their scenes were electrically charged. That electric charge wasn't going to last for long because to move the plot, Daemon was sent off to secure a castle called Harrenhal. And on the writer's side, great win that avoided shackling both key characters in one place. But the choice isolated Daemon from every significant character that we had ever met, leading to interactions with side characters and supporting characters who meant nothing to Daemon and even less to us. So to create emotion and stakes, they resorted to Daemon being haunted by dreams and visions. But these were false stakes because we knew that none of it was real and none of it affected the present timeline, the only timeline that matters, because that's the only one where actions shape ongoing events. Now in TV, you have to work within location and budget constraints, of course, but even with that considered, there's an important lesson to learn, so pay attention to this. Don't isolate characters from others that we are invested in and who have personal history and conflict with the key characters in your scenes too, because you will jeopardize your opportunity and chances for characterful conflict that dials up genuine personal stakes. You want scenes affecting characters we know so that if they suffer, we feel something too, and if scenes can't achieve that, we won't care. But those lessons were forgotten this season, and with only his hauntings to try and force emotional investment in him now, Daemon mirrored Rhaenyra. He was another person locked away in another castle with nothing of interest happening with anyone we've any investment in at any point. And to get around that, they betrayed who Daemon fundamentally is. Daemon was always portrayed as a man who would kill you for looking at him funny or for saying the wrong thing. He's arrogant, thin-skinned, and dangerous. That's what made him so fascinating on screen and why his scenes with Rhaenyra were always so captivating. But suddenly, he struck up a friendship. An inexplicable friendship with a resident witch in Harrenhal called Alis, someone who is arrogant, acts as his superior, giving him little to no respect. And wily, scheming, dangerous Daemon, who refused to eat his host's food in case it was poisoned, was mysteriously willing to drink a random potion from this woman, completely undermining his intelligence and character. And why did he do this? Because otherwise they couldn't give us those flashbacks to fake stakes, and he'd really have had nothing of consequence to do for multiple episodes. And this is the knock-on effect of isolating your characters. The Daemon we had invested in and come to know across season 1 would never have tolerated Alis, and he'd never have drunk an unknown potion that could have killed him. And to make matters worse, he was increasingly humbled and intimidated by Alis, diminishing Daemon's power and menace even more. And why? Why is he tolerating this? Because in screenwriting, characters need someone to talk to for us to access their inner world. And the writers had put Daemon in a place where there was no one of significance to talk to. So they had to engineer some relationship, and Alis was the answer, a woman who usurped his power, and our fiery Daemon became as passive as Rhaenyra, handed what his storyline required, as everyone from that plotline came to him while Daemon stayed put, tripping out. And this problem of conjuring supporting characters that we just don't care about, but without whom the plot can't exist, well, let me ask you, do you remember the name of the blacksmith's daughter? Because she died, and we spent a lot of time with that family. Too much time spent with side characters spinning wheels for 7 episodes until the plot required them to activate. Now, we want to get to know characters. Of course we do, we need that, but the flaw here and why this was so underwhelming is what I flagged earlier too. The degree to which a character is compelling, and this includes what you reveal about them too, directly links to how clearly we understand how what we're seeing and learning informs the main story we've signed up to see. Everything has to earn its place, but season 2 made us slog through scene after scene of what seemed like irrelevant side characters and moments in their irrelevant lives, which, no matter how eventful, were never engaging because of the yawning chasm between our understanding of why we're seeing this and how it plugs into our understanding of what we want to see progress. And then, rather depressingly, these side characters swooped in to save the day in the penultimate episode, ripping the power to affect things directly from Rhaenyra's hands even more. And this brings us to the central and critical flaw. This show's dramatic concept was a trap. A war between 2 houses for the throne, with friends and families torn apart, sounds like great drama, but the trap is revealed in simply asking what happens practically for the writers and viewers when your concept requires your key protagonist to be sheltered from harm at all costs. If your protagonist can't go anywhere in the story, then the story must be brought to them. And that's been the pattern through the whole of season 2. If a protagonist has no ability to see decisions through, then they are ineffectual with no agency. They're powerless, and so were the writing team. Because if Rhaenyra gets killed, the war's over, and so is their show. Now, I don't know the inner workings of the writer's room, and no doubt some writers got grey hairs trying to find the answers and maybe even the exits, but there must have been better options than keeping Rhaenyra trapped in a cage, because mechanically she was under house arrest the entire time, relegated to a supporting role. Everyone else with agency and freedom drove the story we were constantly being told is hers. And this fact quickly made Rhaenyra the least interesting character of all. Characters brought the story to her, reporting what we had already seen. She moaned about being stuck and powerless, repeating her claims about owning the throne. But drama is decisions, and Rhaenyra couldn't move the story forward decisively, because anybody she gave orders to would invariably not do what she'd asked in the way that she'd asked it. And how do we know? Because dramatic writing demands it. If characters just did as they were told, there would be no character development. Everything would be a straight line from desire to outcome. We'd have no drama or stakes in the show. So we literally know that things won't go as planned, because dramatic writing is about adaptations to change. And that means what we were handed was an isolated, passive and reactive character we were told is the story's protagonist, but who had no agency or power to drive the story along. She relied on other characters to implement her words and plans, which inherently meant there were always going to be changes that she was also powerless to influence in any meaningful way. She could only react with frustration after decisive moments had passed. So Rhaenyra became a pointless character in her story. A spider in the center of a web, but one with no legs, a character about as dynamic as roadkill. So what has Season 2 taught us? It's taught us to avoid isolating characters from those with whom they have history and conflict. That way, you'll protect characterful conflict in scenes and create genuine personal stakes. You're going to make sure characters have arcs that we can invest in, with events visibly driving internal development. Remember that attention follows energy. Dynamic and active characters are always more engaging and will be drawn to them over characters who are static. Show, don't tell. Avoid doubling up on scenes and reporting what we've already seen. Remember that events don't equal a story, and we invest in characters above all else. The plot should be exciting, but it should drive character development, and don't betray the character traits that the audience have come to love. Only twist a character out of shape if that's for a purposeful transformation. And the most important lesson that Season 2 hammered home: ensure your protagonists have real agency and can drive the story's key beats. Make sure your concept doesn't rely on protagonists being brought to the story by other characters. If you deny them freedom, you can't get around this, and without personal stakes to motivate actions, you will risk creating characters that we simply won't care about to develop the crucial plot beats. By learning these lessons, you'll avoid the mistakes that have plagued House of Dragon in Season 2. I hope you've got value from this video, and if you want to supercharge your writing, check out the links in the description below. And if you are ready to level up your writing skills for life, you can book a call directly with me, and I'll see you in the next video.